this last election, the Congressional Black Caucus was able to celebrate some visible milestones within its ranks. A number of leading CBC members have been elevated or tapped for jobs in the Biden administration. Cedric Richmond, Marcia Fudge, and of course, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. But cosmetic aside, the districts so many CBC members represent remain among the hardest hit by COVID-19. And even as the vaccine teases some public health relief, black lawmakers have to surmount their community's distrust of it, disinformation around it, and disproportionate damage already done to their local economies. But with half of Congress now living in a fact-free America and refusing to condemn racist demonstrations as they did protest against Black death, where do CBC lawmakers even begin? Well, here to tell us is the new chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Beatty. Joyce Beatty is Democrat from Ohio. Welcome, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Reverend Al. Always good to be on your show.
Now, let me ask you this. In addition to those Biden administration picks I mentioned from your own ranks, he's nominated several women and people of color to what are in some cases firsts. But earlier this week, I and other legacy civil rights leaders had a virtual meeting with President-elect Biden to make our concerns known. That after the historic black support that he enjoyed last month. Only decisive action and targeted appointments of black talent to top posts will do, no half-stepping. Speaking as best you can for a diverse group, which what the CBC's assessment of the president's picks must come about. Well, what do you feel thus far in regards to his inclusion of black talent, and where would you like to see it go in those that are still unfilled?
Well, thank you for that, Reverend Al. Of course, we want to see him to continue with the same momentum he has now. As you mentioned earlier, we're very pleased that Congresswoman Marcia Fudge will be leading HUD. And certainly we know when we look at housing and all of the issues that come under there, what black folks have been faced with, whether that's evictions, whether that is losing the mortgages on their home. That's why we put forbearance in our relief packet. We also know that he has appointed an ambassador to the United Nations, a brilliant black woman. We know on the economic team, there is another African-American, but we have a lot of major cabinet positions still out there. We also have the Attorney General's position out there. We have Commerce, we have Labor. So we have a lot of positions yet to go. But when you look at having Congressman Cedric Richmond there as a key advisor to the president, I feel very comfortable with that. And of course, we have one of our own, Kamala Harris, as Vice President-elect, who will always be in the room. So I think he's off to a good start. I was very pleased to see that he had the courage to also put the general's name forward. When you look at General Lloyd Austin, someone who has an impeccable record with what he has done. But we know that's going to be a hurdle for confirmation. We know it's going to be a hurdle with the waiver. But at least I think that President-elect Biden is doing what he said. So right now, we also have a Congressional Black Caucus transition team. So he has kept his word with that. We have weekly meetings. And I want you to know, Reverend Al, we're not letting up. But I don't want to come out and condemn him right away because he has made a good effort and a good start. But as I said earlier, it's only the beginning. We still will continue to monitor. We will continue to meet with him. And I have to tell you, he's had a very open process. Those who are close to him on his transition, his chief of staff, I've actually had a number of calls with Ron. So I would say they're doing very well at keeping us informed, hosting meetings as the meeting he had with you and several other civil rights leaders.
Yeah, I think, you know, as we continue to do our job in terms of the Civil Rights Committee, keeping the pressure on, I will say that Cedric Richmond has been exceptional in terms of staying in touch, and he is in the room. and he should be noted for that, and a former chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. And I give credit for Biden to begin these meetings as president-elect, because as you know as well as I do, most presidents don't even have these meetings until after the inauguration.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let me ask you this on another issue. How concerned are you that now that with his legal options exhausted, that the president will further escalate his grievance campaign, continuing to draw out radicalized supporters like the Proud Boys and giving us more of the kind of violence we saw last night in Washington? Reports of multiple stabbings, Black Lives Matter signs burned in the streets. And according to the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, friends of this show, they had targeted vandalism of black churches. I mean, you were part of the big commitment march that Martin Luther King III and I co-chaired in August. And we had over 200,000 people there. You spoke, you were on stage with us. Not one incident of violence. And we saw a much less number last night. And all of this violence. And how much do you think we are in for this? Is this president seems to keep stoking this fallacy that he, in fact, was robbed of the presidency?
I think you hit it on the head. Stoking is the right word. I think we're going to see more of this, unfortunately, because not only did we have his followers and the Proud Boys out there armed, not only were they out there vandalizing, but he actually was out there with two of his colleagues that he recently pardoned. When you think of Roger Stone and when you think of Flynn actually going out there with him. You also will notice, different than your march, you're right, with hundreds of thousands of people, they were not wearing masks. They were not trying to social distance. I think we're in for a lot more of this, unfortunately. I think this president is devastated at his loss, and he's going to continue to try to excite his base and get them to come out there to take the attention off of the real victory that we've had. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris making real change, cleaning up the mess that he has left us.
As you now take over the Congressional Black Caucus with numbers that are historic within itself, what is your main agenda items legislatively that you want to push as chair of the caucus?
Well, right now, I think when you look at the number of Black Americans who are dying disproportionately, we have to start with the coronavirus. We have to start knowing that they now have a vaccination that's coming out. We have to also look at jobs and economy and certainly the social injustices. I put them on the same platform. Too many people are dying because of guns or at the hands of police officers. Too many people are dying because of COVID-19. I'm also worried that we have to do a better job of educating those about should they take the vaccination. You know, we're hearing first-line people, those who are janitors, those who are in nursing homes. Many of those folks are our folks. The Congressional Black Caucus represents 17 million Black Americans and 82 million individuals in the United States population. So we'll have a big voice. But education and awareness, because I want to make sure if we're in the front line for this vaccine, you know, what about health care? What happens if there's a side effect? How are they going to be covered? We know we're traditionally not in clinical trials. So I'm very concerned about it. But I also want to make sure if we're getting it from the scientists, if we're getting it from the physicians, we need to make sure, because many of our folks are going to be in that first 2.9 million that they give out. I want them protected. I want them covered. I want to make sure if you're working somewhere and your insurance is in jeopardy, then we need to make sure that they will be covered for whatever medical expenses that they have. We have a lot of work to do, but I can tell you, we're ready to roll up our sleeves because we have a great foundation to stand on.
Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, our thanks to you for being with us this evening, and congratulations. Coming up, a snapshot of one of